I'm calling this contraption a third hand in my workshop. I made it with the idea that I'm going to use it to hold dust collection hoses while I'm doing work around the workplace. I'd imagine most of you guys out there are like me. There are times you're making a cut or doing something and you wish you could hold a dust hose right where you need it. The lower joint is a ball and socket joint. You can see we have a good range of motion. This lower sphere is very well mounted to this base, so this can be clamped down anywhere that I need it. The upper jaws are also mounted on a ball and socket joint to give me a good range of motion. This ball and socket joint is also mounted to this pivoting joint on the upper end of the arm. And here are the jaws that hold the dust collection hoses. I realize this looks like something out of the Jurassic or Cretaceous, but yeah, that's okay. Not much on build videos. I think you can get an idea basically how it was made just by looking at it. I will include a few notes for some of the more interesting parts of the build. So hope you like it. Here's what it looked like. For the ball and socket joints, this larger ball down here was a finial that I got at the home center. I just cut the top off, turned it more into a sphere. This upper one was a ball that I purchased at a local craft center, a Michael's store. These were cheap. I think I got two of these for $5 and these were around $1 or so a piece. For the socket, I didn't try to mill a hemisphere. I just used the Forstner bit to cut a shallow hole or a mortise for it. The clamping mechanisms are just bolts with nuts on them. This is suspended out here. It's held by the proper space, and when you clamp down on this bolt here, it really squeezes this ball and socket joint here. And I have a similar up here. And here's the mechanism for the upper jaws. You can see they open and close. If you loosen this, you can pivot it around all sorts of ways. And then of course this ball and socket joint also pivots on that joint. These two bolts here are really just pivot points. If I turn it around, you can see that these nuts are lock nuts, but they're not tight. That way the jaws can float freely. There's a spacer in here to give me the proper spacing to match that, the ball and socket joint. And this knob here is between the pivot points of the jaws and the ball and socket joint to really clamp this thing down on the ball. Here you can see it clamped down to my table saw and pretty much fully extended, and it's holding one of my drills, which, I don't know, weighs a couple pounds. So it's easily strong enough to hold a dust collection hose. You may have noticed, but I did not paint it, I didn't finish it. I'm not really big on finishing parts of my shop that are really just tools. To come up with the geometry of the jaws, I didn't do anything fancy. I just got a couple scraps of PVC and started putzing around with them. The extremes of the hoses I wanted to be able to hold would be represented by these two. This guy here is about 30 millimeters or so, and this is a standard 2.5-inch hose fitting. I just kind of messed with it a little bit to see how it would line up, and you can see the pivot points are on a second set of holes. Where I originally had it, it was clear that wasn't going to work. Here's the auxiliary arm hooked up to my table saw. You can see the platform here is just clamped to the table saw. Here's one possible configuration for my drill press. I'm going to cap this video here. I don't like videos that go too long. I hope you enjoyed it, perhaps even got a cool idea or two out of it. That would be great. I'll post a second video that will have more of the esoteric details, and perhaps if you had any questions, that video will answer them. If not, feel free to send me a note. Thanks again.